This is the Red Alert. Civil defense information will be broadcast at 6:40.
West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Y2K, how can we prepare?
Stop a few of their machines and radios. Throw them into darkness for a few hours.
We are fighting for our lives. My family must survive.
For 5 years, 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration.
Coming at you from the frozen tundra that is East Central Alberta, Canada, streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Odyssey. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. I am Toolman Tim. Today is September the 7th, 2023, and this is episode 363 of Workshop Radio. See a whole bunch of faces, names anyway, in here in the chat room so far. We're going to dive in just a couple of minutes to the discussion of the latest in the 1 Second After book. I wanted to call it a trilogy, but it's a quadrilogy now. Can't believe I got that off on the first go. All right, so let's get the announcements out of the way, and then I'll bring my fellow Post-Apocalyptic book club members on with me. So first off, Thursday night, so don't forget our sponsor. That's Fortress K9. That's my good brother Joel Riles. He doesn't just raise protection dogs. He also sets an example to the rest of the world on what it means to be broke, and build back even better. That man has built himself an incredible business, an incredible lifestyle. And if you want to be motivated, add the Protection Dog podcast to your feed. And it's not just about dogs. It's actually very little about dogs, but it's about business, rebuilding, and the verbal kick to the ass that you need. I see Leather Homestead, Spags Unfiltered out there in the chat. Good to see you guys. Number 2, Self-Reliance Festival. Guys, this morning I get a message from a community member, and they said, hey, have you listened to the live stream that John and Nicole and Jack did? And no, I didn't. Turns out, sounds like Wrangler Star is going to be at SRF, which is it's a big deal to me. I would love to shake that man's hand, say hello, and thank him for the content he's put out for sure. But if you're interested, tickets are still on sale. Early bird discounts long gone, but it's worth every penny of the $95 for that. Just for the 2 days alone, you will come away changed. So selfreliancefestival.com is the place to go. And finally, guys, we have Saturday night. We're going to be really close. We're not going to quite hit the 10,000 subscriber mark, but we're going to celebrate it early before I hit the road for my 40-day road trip or whatever it happens to be. And I am excited. I'm going to be able to do it with my wife live, and it is going to be, let's see. So I let it out there for you guys. We're going to do trivia, and I asked what you wanted to do, and it was a tie between 80s and action films. So it's going to be 80s action films. We're going to have a bunch of trivia. We have some giveaways. I have a really sweet top prize. We're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to answer the questions, and whoever's the fastest will get a prize. And then we're going to do some draws along the way. But I also got a pound of coffee from Nicole Sauce at Hollow Roast Coffee. I have a really cool little kit from Chuck at Homestead Medical. And I have, sitting right here, look at that beautiful, beautiful knife and the leather work made by Lone Canadian, a fellow Albertan, somebody who lives about a half an hour away from me. And what a cool dude all around. That was a great prize. So we're going to have a bunch of other stuff in there, but that is what it is. So from there, I got a couple of fellers waiting in the background. They're starting to give me the finger. I don't know what's going on. No, I'm just kidding. Hang on here. We'll bring them in. Nate, Byron, how are you guys?
Yeah, how's it going, Tim?
Not bad at all. It's been a minute. We've been 2 months since our last encounter.
Yeah, I was going through withdrawals.
I know. Let me try to just adjust this a little bit. Nope, that didn't work. Bye, Byron. Hang on. There we go. I was trying to center us in a little better, but didn't do much. So let's try this. No, I don't like that. That's uncomfortable. All right. So anybody on the audio, I was just trying. I brought us way too close to the picture there, so I apologize. But yeah, it's going to be Hunter says Wrangler Star. That's an old school dude. Yeah, he's old school, but he's still kicking ass and taking names. If anybody has seen, you seen any of his TikTok stuff he's been doing, Nate?
No.
Let's just say it involves a Roomba and a Claymore, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So, or many other things, Anyway, he's an all around. Yeah. He, let's just say a lot of his new content seems to be an embodiment of the Anarchist Cookbook. So there is what it is. It's all for entertainment purposes only, but he cracks me up. So what have you been up to, Nate, since we last brought together this crew of heathens delinquents?
So it's been 2 months. Well, I rebuilt our rabbit hutch. I think that had to be 2 months ago. Let's see, processed some rabbits. We got some new freezers out in the garage.
Saw that garage looks really good.
Yeah, I figured we'd have the backup for the event next weekend, or the 16th. But yeah, we got a couple stand-up freezer fridge combos. Push of a button, they can either be full freezer or full fridge.
Nice.
And their garage ready already. They already got the kit for the thermostat.
That's good. Yeah. Well, just the organizing alone on the garage looked really, really good, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I put, what was it? 4 10,000 lumen lights inside instead of 1 3,000 lumen. So.
Right on.
See what you're doing.
And it's kind of cool. We're talking virtually right now, but in, what are we, 8 days, I think I'll see you in person. Man, it's getting quick.
I know. It's going to be crazy.
How about Mr. Byron down below there? What have you been up to, sir?
I know. Well, I've got 3 weeks into a $20 a week prepping challenge I'm doing.
How you making out with that?
Pretty good. I'm going to do some, I haven't done any videos yet, but I haven't got anything posted yet. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to do it.
Do I need to challenge you to do a challenge video?
No, I'm just doing it. I just want to show people what you can do for $20.
Nice. What's your best score in your $20 so far?
The best I've got is not really probably the medical stuff.
Okay.
Just because I did 1 week of nothing but food, dry food, canned goods and a few beans and rice. Next week was some water, but the medical was probably the best bang for your buck, I guess.
Is that probably the area that's been hit the least with inflation, do you think? Or it's just you can still...
Yeah, it seems like it.
Okay.
Like the Band-Aid, the Band-Aid prices are pretty, boxes less than $2 at Walmart and stuff. So then I'm going to go into like a $20, like a Dollar Tree or $1.25 tree, where the hell they call it, and do something like that 1 week and see what I can do.
Cool. I like that. I like that a lot. I always enjoy that. I filmed a couple and never put them up, but I've gone to do you guys have Staples in the States?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So I've gone to Staples and Circuit City or whatever the Canadian version is. And I just shoot 10 different items that in a pinch you could use for a prep. And I have never put them together for a video, but I'm always intrigued by that kind of what you can get at certain stores. It's fun.
Yeah. So we're going to change my channel name. I don't know yet. I'll run it by you all. I'll run it by the delinquents in the group later. So
sure, man. I love to hear it.
I figure there's different names out.
So it was a long wait for our book. We got the book. Give it what were your thoughts? One sentence, Nate.
All right. So just so we are aware, this book has only been out for 3 weeks.
At the most, yeah.
3 weeks and 2 days. So if you have not read this book, go away.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Hold on. Yes. So if you're still listening and you have plans of reading 5 years after and you have not yet, please turn this off. Go do something else. Yes.
Yes.
So there it is. If you have not, I don't know what to tell you because we're going to spoil the hell out of it right now. Go ahead, Nate.
A very good book with a lot of the big unexpected ending.
Yes.
Yes. You give it a go, Byron.
I agree with Nate. It's unexpected ending. Some of it was a little bit predictable, just the way it kind of ended 1 year after whatever the last book was. But it was good. I thought it was unexpected for sure.
Let's see. Hell of an ending with a bit of a rushed plot.
Yeah, I would agree
leave
with
it at that. That's
Yeah.
where I'm going to call that's my sentence. So I can't believe I wrapped it up in one sentence as I keep talking. So, and Hunter says, really predictable after the assets were counted off. Is that what are we talking about? Like all the nukes and stuff so everything's spoiler free or spoiler. Yeah. Go ahead with your spoiler.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's the fact that, all right, so we'll not get there all the way, but yes, assets were used in the book.
Yeah.
But if you have not read the book, you're going to be a little shocked how they were used.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. All right. So I have so many random thoughts that I wrote down, but I think
Let's go through your list.
I think we should work our way through. Do you guys want to work our way through the plot first? Kind of how I do, take notes from each chapter. We can do that.
Yeah.
Then,
Let's do that, and then we'll go with the ending.
That because I have 4 pages of notes, and normally for these shows I have about 2 pages. So we will. Oh my goodness, they'll let anybody in the back door, ladies and gentlemen. There is Nat, the preparedness guy, hiding in the dark. How are you, brother?
Hey, good. How are you? Can you hear me okay?
I heard your letter, like you send snail mail. Your question to Cam and Colby today on their show. So I can't even remember what it was. Oh, something. Was it the worst survival food or something like that?
Yeah, I think the best and the worst.
So we got you on here. We just asked everybody else to summarize the book in 1 sentence. Since you don't get marked on this assignment, so would you like to give your one sentence description?
Yeah, let's see. Oh no, it was different. That's for sure.
Okay, before we get in, we're gonna work our way through the book. Anybody a Stephen King reader here at all? Okay,
a little bit.
Does anybody know what he is infamous for as opposed to famous for? So the dude can write dialogue. David Sigley just said something highly inappropriate in the comment.
Funny.
Yeah. So Stephen King can world build, write dialogue, and plot with the best of them. But yes, so Tag The Stand is my all-time favorite book. However, that is the perfect example of what Stephen King is best at and what he is worst at. What he is best at is world building, dialogue, and plot. What he sucks at is endings, and he will be the first person to say it. So he literally, do I have the terminology right? Nat might know. The Deus Ex Machina or whatever. Is that the hand of God?
Yeah, the Deus Ex Machina, the God in the machine.
From outside of the machine. Yeah. So he literally has the hand of God come down and embrace the nuke at the end of The Stand, so I just ruined a 45-year-old book for people, but that's besides the point. I will overlook his endings because I love his books. But anyway, this felt a bit like that. Maybe not the hand of God thing, but a very, very rushed ending. Not a tacked on ending, but here's everything and there it goes. So that's my feeling. So let's work our way through. So I love some of his choices of quotes to open the different chapters, which was kind of fun. They were all very much like, a 20-year-old who would pick quotes about the end of the world. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But it was, behold a pale horse from Revelation. That was, it is what it is. It reminded me of the Dawn of the Dead remake, which made me happy. So, so it opens with Michaela and John having a pretty heated discussion about about him going away to see Bob Scales again. Did anybody see that coming, or do you want to talk about that a little bit, Nate?
Oh, of course I saw it coming. I mean, the guy's dodged more bullets than anybody in the entire series, and she doesn't want him leaving town because she knows shit's going to happen. And he leaves town, and guess what happens? Shit happens.
It happens. That's a good point. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, well, they rebuilt the college, which was cool. I really liked they found a lot of bat poo, so they were able to make black powder. I thought that was rather ingenious. And they spent quite a bit of time talking about things like how the college moved the wood stove down for John and Michaela. I thought that was just how much they rebuilt. They had home fries for breakfast, eggs, bacon, and cornbread because the wheat hadn't grown yet. But I don't know, Nat, when the end of the last book, when they made their stand against the clandestine government and they decided that they were going to rebuild a new U.S. government, did you think it was going to succeed, or where do you go with, did you think it was going to succeed, and do you agree with where it went into this book?
I thought it would have been more successful. They kind of made it seem like it was just a couple states, but prior to the attack on that clandestine government, you had, you had these kids getting sent as part of militias or military to all sorts of states all over the country. So the way the military was organized previous to this book was better than it was organized in this book. So there was, for me, that was a little bit of a disconnect. There is, you had people showing up there, and of course, they're brought in from outside to fight against the terrorists in the North Carolina, and their kids are getting sent to fight against terrorists or trying to get sent to fight against uprisings in other states. But it was very well organized. They had resources, and now it's like all of a sudden they have nothing.
To me, a couple of things, and I appreciate it because, okay, the old all the plans of mice and men, and everybody has. So every time John gets on his high horse, where he starts kind of waxing about morality, it almost always gets thrown back at him because even though he might be the moral guy, it doesn't always mean it's going to work. So what did you think, Nate, about the idea that they kind of left the last book where they had the moral high ground, and just because they had the moral high ground didn't mean that it was going to stay together? Because, I mean, here we are we 2 or 3 years post the last book? I think 3 years, right?
3 years.
3 years.
Take, yeah.
And it's all fell to pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's that it kind of sounds familiar because you'd have more close knit and able to control in smaller areas, but you get out in the country, then you have more fractions of people, and that's exactly what they're dealing with. So that's our makeup. So that makes total sense to me. Once you get past the mountains, everybody's just feral out there.
Because, okay, when you guys came together as a country, were you 13 disparate colonies at one time? Like, were you guys all your own? Like, how does that work? Can somebody explain that to an ignorant Canadian?
Well, it's tough because it falls under British rule as separate colonies.
Yeah,
and they weren't all originally founded by British colonists, but essentially had all become British colonies under British rule, and then separately, they all formed together with their little Continental Congress initially to do the Declaration of Independence, and then it wasn't until 13 years later or something like that they actually did the Constitution, because from the Revolutionary War to the Constitution, they were separate recognized states.
Right.
And how long was that in between period?
It was like, I think the
10 or 20 years maybe.
1776 was the Declaration of Independence. I think it was like 1789. And somebody please correct me if I'm wrong. 1789.
Okay. I think you're about right, somewhere around there.
Yeah. So it was like more than 10 years.
Do you? David Sigler says Tim doesn't understand because we eventually separated from England. Yes, as opposed to waiting around until the Queen got tired of you and just said, "Oh, okay, you can have it." So, do you think that Bill or William Fortune? Do you think he's kind of trying to, because so much of what he talks about in his books, he mirrors back to history. So, do you think maybe he was attempting a little bit of that, like where? Yeah, go ahead, Nat.
So that's what I thought was listening to the book was trying to basically bring it back to the colonies and then getting not full support, getting a small amount of support, which for the plot of the book, lended itself to a more unstable situation. I mean, the U.S. originally was a pretty unstable situation. It wasn't working between the Revolutionary War and the Constitution. That's why they came together and secretly formed a new government, and all of the states eventually signed on, and a new government was formed, which still recognized them as separate states under a federal umbrella, but they had their independent state powers. Everything that wasn't specifically assigned in the Constitution. It wasn't until like the Civil War in the 1860s that we became. It was these United States to the United States, singular.
Yeah. Okay.
It was separate states, and then now it's one. We have one state, essentially. But I definitely think that Bill was doing that, trying to throw back to the constitutional debates on how to get everybody on board with one form of government. And because this wasn't the same thing, a lot of books try to address that. Like, hey, if the Constitution, and TV shows and stuff too, if the Constitution is disrupted, if the country is disrupted, do we start from scratch? Do we say the Constitution as a whole is in effect? Do we say the Constitution as it was originally written without any amendments is in effect? What do you do? And there's no answer.
I like that because, I mean, one of the things as an outsider looking into the U.S. that I really appreciate is that the Constitution lays out, I wouldn't even call them rights. I mean, they are, but they're inalienable. So they exist. Like, you're born with them. You're God-given, no matter who you are or where you come from. And so in that instance, I would think that the Constitution probably should continue to be valid. Wouldn't you think?
You'd hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean,
but in reality, is it recognized like that today?
Oh, sure. And I mean, and that's the beauty of it because, I mean, of course, Bill comes at it as a history professor with, a strong bent toward philosophy. And he looks at all of this, and so much of what John Matherson talks about is the perfect. This is how it should be. This is the way it's supposed to be. But then the real world beats up against him all the time. He's like, let's rebuild a great country. 3 years later, they're barely holding on to a thread because people are more worried about eating and surviving than they are about, because here's the thing that grabbed me about this book the most is, despite their best intentions of wanting to have a democratically elected government, their government was every bit a sham government as the previous government when it comes down to it, because it was just a bunch of people who were, quote unquote, appointed by a few other people who may or may not have even been there, right?
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at the very end of the previous book, Bob Scales tried to address that by basically resigning his commission and saying, I'm not doing this as a military coup. I'm a private citizen who decided to do this to try to lend some legitimacy to his actions. And, like we see that, they end on the high note, like you said, with the, moral, however you said it, moral high ground. But then it really didn't have the kind of power they hoped, which is like, I'm kind of that whole storyline of headed up there to the secret compound was not exactly what I expected from the series, right. But I'm glad he rounded it out with his final book.
So let's ask, what do you think, Nate? Is this the last one, do you think?
I want to say I hope it is. We just kind of leave it there because the only foreseeable thing forward I could see possible would be this nut job digging his way out of the mountain.
That's true.
And coming back for vengeance.
What do you think, Byron? Is this the last book of the series?
Yeah, because he kind of left it on a high note, but he did leave it open. Because he did make it home, so. I
mean, I don't know.
20 years later or something, maybe show him with the grandkids are older.
And I could be totally wrong here, but Bill's 72. And talking to him, he didn't necessarily think, it didn't sound like he was super excited about the prospect of more writing, or at least more writing into this. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, because these are the type of books that your publisher comes back to and they're like, Bill, this is the book that makes you a lot of money, so I'd really like you to write another one. And he's like, I'd really like to write an alternative Civil War historical novel that only 12 people will read. Like that's, I get it, because it's like the Hollywood thing. You have to make, what was it? George Clooney always said you have to make a blockbuster for every personal passion project you want to make, right? So we'll see. Byron, what about the plane ride out to what's the name of the underground facility? Raven Rock, yeah. What'd you think of that?
I thought it was pretty good. I mean, then the pilot hot dogging at the end. I mean, just put me in the mouth. He was watching, maybe watching Top Gun or something. He had that hot dog pilot.
Again, I know Bill is a pilot in real life, but man, he loves to write pilots like kind of dicks a little bit, Yeah. Nate, what'd you think of the inbred deer?
I got a kick out of that. So hearing that story, it's like I want to see them.
Yeah.
You hear about the one with two heads, or the one that's got the head twice the size as it should be because they've been stuck in a fence for 100 years or 70 years or whatever it was. I thought that was pretty cool. A little joke here and there about having pets in the apocalypse.
I thought it was a sweet little piece of, I don't know, it was just a cool little piece of world building. I like that. It gives it just a little bit of legitimacy. He's like, we were building this building, but it got, squared off 70 years ago. And this is what happens when there's no new genes involved.
Yeah.
Well, the family tree looks like a 2x4.
Yeah. We had, where I grew up in Nova Scotia, when you go up the valley, there's a place called the North Mountain, and they had the Goalers there. They called it the Goaler clan, and they were basically left alone for the better part of a century. And they went in and wrote a book about them and took pictures of them, and they're every bit you would think you would see in the worst backwoods Appalachian village you're going to find. Like it's pretty interesting. So okay, there was in part 2 there was a section. Call me stupid, I didn't catch all the way through these books the connections to Admiral Youngblood. So did you either, Nat?
No.
I remember him from the first book. He was the guy that John asked for the medicine on the down in Charleston, and he told him, we can't just give it to you and save one person. It's just going to go to hell later on down the road.
So it must have explicitly said it was Youngblood then, did it? Because I remember Youngblood. I do remember him from a previous book being the admiral, one of the admirals that had his finger on the nukes. Remember, they talked about that. Man, for the life of me, it must be because John made 2 phone calls in the first book, didn't he? First one was to a doctor, right? Looking for insulin, and the second one, or am I wrong about that?
Yeah. It was the doctor at the main hospital a couple towns over. Yeah. Yeah, Asheville, and then it was the carrier down Charleston, which was Youngblood.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I guess I appreciated the progression of their relationship from the first book to the end then, because I mean they became what do you call it, unwilling bedfellows. They were very much to the point where they had to work together. It was kind of cool. And there's something I need you guys to explain to me about the ending. Maybe somebody caught it, but we'll get to there. So the massive blast door that's just randomly down there. Anybody else get like Stargate vibes or anything?
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, am I the only one? Okay. That's what I was thinking.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
It makes you wonder, because I mean, this whole it revolves around Raven Rock, which has been openly exposed. I have a friend who works in continuity of government, and there are several sites throughout the country more secret than Raven Rock, right? So Raven Rock was exposed, and it has basically been abandoned as a primary continuity of government site. The rest of them are top secret,
right?
Completely top secret. And they have them well stocked. They have evacuation plans for politicians, Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate and for the executive branch, president, his cabinet, all of those. So it's kind of interesting that this all kind of revolved around one site that has been exposed versus, well, kind of did go into some additional sites. And we haven't talked about that yet, but
That's okay.
yeah. So I don't know that they would be connected literally, but it's kind of a cool idea. And there were definitely more sites out there. And if there was any advance warning, you would have many politicians and possibly their families. That's been kind of like a back and forth with politicians, is whether or not the continuity plans included their families. But a lot of people would have survived if there was any advance warning, not just the military industrial complex and the CIA.
Is there any public knowledge of kind of the time frame that these places are set up for?
Like how long it would take to evacuate to?
Could you go down? No. How long could they go down and stay down there self-sufficient?
No public knowledge. Yeah, no public knowledge on that. But from what we learned about like Greenbrier, from
right,
that was one that was exposed. It was a significant amount of time, and that one was stocked with luxury items. And they've gotten smarter about it since then, I'm sure.
So put on your hat. You have Masters of Emergency Management, right? Or what was it called? Am I close?
That's right. Yeah, Emergency Disaster Management.
Yeah. So if you had to put your hat on and you needed to supply multiple shelters or whatever, clandestine sites across the country to support the government for just about any eventuality to be able to reemerge at some point, how long would you stock it for?
I mean, a year would take care of a lot of those concerns, a lot of concerns for pretty much anything. And that's not a difficult thing to do, especially if you're spreading people out to separate sites. And that's a good question. Jumping on America. But yeah, and it's easy to do now with freeze-dried foods that last decades. You know, they stock that. You would have a water source within your site, be able to have a well, access to a well. Keeping it powered is the issue.
Yes.
But maybe I don't know, but maybe some of these sites have the modular nuclear generators, right?
There was
so
articles
same thing
about that this week. But anyway, sorry,
like you have nuclear submarines, nuclear aircraft carriers, etc. It's not that hard to imagine that you could also have a nuclear bunker.
So if you said a year's easy. So of course, in typical government, they said if one, why not two, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to guess here, and I have no reason why, but you would think it would have to be 3 to 5 years, wouldn't you? I mean,
probably. And this isn't just the Senate and Congress and the president and his cabinet. This is like Treasury Department, State Department. All of them are looking at continuity of government and figuring out their own plans too. So
it has to be the IRS too. Am I right?
Yeah, you bet they are. That's like the way the government's gonna keep funding. But the government, all these different branches of the government departments are all looking at continuity plans, and some will be more robust and better funded than the others. So,
anybody watch? I'm going to go off page here a little bit. Anybody watch Jericho, the TV show?
Yeah.
Yep.
By season 2, they were already collecting taxes again. Do you remember?
Right.
Yeah. So, what do they say? I think they always said cockroaches would be the only thing to survive a nuclear bomb. I think tax collectors would be a close second. So,
tax
same
collectors in the EPA.
What's that, Byron?
Tax collectors in the EPA.
That's true, because they'd need to be there to measure the rads. So
you guys mentioned why build one when you can have two. When I heard that line in this book, I thought of one movie.
We all did. Okay, anybody else? Or at least I did. I mean, the entire premise of this book is taken from that movie. Anybody else? Because, hold on, Hunter says it right here. That was from the same movie, wasn't it, Nate? Am I right?
Yep.
Or am I?
Yep.
I don't feel like an idiot when y'all say the movie. I know I've seen it.
It's a Will Smith film, right, Nate?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay, well then I'm going to say Independence Day.
Yeah, that's what I would. Yeah.
Contact.
Oh, it's been a lot of years since I saw that film. You're going to have to read.
Never seen it.
That's really funny. We were both thinking of two completely different movies.
So
Go ahead.
Contact, the guy who says it is the billionaire in space after the first teleportation machine blows up. He gets down to her, or he's talking to her, and he's up in space on like this ventilation system or something. And he shows her on the globe where the second machine is, and he says that exact line.
Fair enough. Yep. So, okay. You remember when shit's going sideways in Independence Day, and the what is it? The president there, he's like, I thought Area 51 was just a myth or whatever, and the guy's like,
That's
hang on
not
just a
exactly true, sir.
Not exactly true. So to me, that dude is like Youngblood a little bit, because Youngblood was the inside man, right?
Yeah.
And when they say the line in the book, it says something along the lines of, what's $1 billion overrun here and $1 billion overrun there, you know? And because the dude, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the old Jewish father says something like, you didn't really think that people spent $250,000 for a toilet seat or so much for a hammer, did you?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's cool. I like that. And I got to toot my own horn. I was super proud of the fact that I dug into Twilight Zone with Bill in the episode.
Yeah.
And then he had that in the book. I was like, oh yeah.
Part of me was thinking as I was listening to the episode and I was reading the book, it's like, did you guys talk about some of the book beforehand? Because you guys are like hitting it dead on.
I was like, yeah, he's a media geek, so I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's sneak down just a little bit here. So I might be reading way too deep into this, but what's his name? Lawrence gives him a fresh pack of Dunhill smokes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was kind of interesting how cigarettes play such a big symbol in this book. And now that I know that he's a really big fan of Ayn Rand, I kind of wonder if that's intentional or if it's just, cigarettes because he smokes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it really is the currency that will make everybody happy. You think about it, and any former smoker will go back to it in a heartbeat.
Sure. I mean, it's a stress relief. And Aldous Huxley there, he wrote Brave New World. It's kind of the opposite of 1984. And I mean, that entire book, the premise is that, people are just going to be busy with good things or not good pleasure. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can see that. How about the double agent thing? So I really like the interaction of John and the mess hall cook, because it went back to, do you remember, I think it was the last book, guys, where he talked about how Bob Scales would always have an inside dude, the one he could sit down and pick his brain. Mm-hmm. And I liked that kind of came to fruition. So Byron, what did you think when we found out that both the mess hall guy and Youngblood were in on the secret society underground?
I thought it was pretty good for Scales to have both of them like that. He knew that he had two different people. I guess having two, he could play the information off both of them to see if one of them maybe was feeding him something that wasn't true. And he could hear it from the little guy, from the mess hall guy, or that he could hear from the top people from what Youngblood would tell him.
So, Nate, we might as well talk. Why don't you describe what happens once they go through the door? Because we haven't really said it yet. And so we really have hit spoilers, but this is like, the first two chapters is pure tension. I thought it was some of the best tension in the book of what the hell is on the other side. So,
right. So they get into this door and they find it's Camp David, basically. If I remember what it is, and it's the military industrial complex, the CIA, and Fort Detrick.
amongst probably many other facilities that they didn't really talk about.
Right, absolutely. So I remember Fort Detrick being, and before he even mentioned it, the biological base in one of the zombie books. I think it was Zombie Rules.
It probably was, actually, yeah.
They talked a lot about that. So that caught my peak as soon as they started talking about the hazmat suits and stuff. I'm like, are we going this way? Are we really going zombie on this thing? But yeah, they find this whole like third government, basically.
The real government this time.
Yes. And it was a little cliche for them to call it the third government.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
I mean,
a good
it's
point.
Yeah. Yeah, Hunter has it right there, the deep state.
Yeah.
Didn't they even allude to the fact that it was the Third Reich?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they were talking a lot about Nietzsche,
Nietzsche, or however you pronounce
yeah,
it.
yeah. They were talking a lot about him too, and everybody had him pegged for an anti-Semite. So, I mean, I'm not surprised they went down that road when they started bringing that name in.
Lawrence, that this is kind of the guy that I don't even know what to call him. I'm at the end of the whole book, I really don't know what Lawrence was, whether he was a figurehead or whether he was just a dude doing everybody else's bidding, or
right.
In some ways, I almost felt like when they walked into that room, the spring-loaded room, you know, the war room from, if anybody's ever seen Dr. Strangelove, it kind of had that vibe to it. But when they walked into there, I'm really not sure if they were all working together or each one of them were there with their own kind of agendas. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, for me, you have it figured out for the first half, 3/4 of the book that Lawrence is running the show under there. And then you realize he's just a puppet.
Right. Okay.
And it's really the CIA running it down there, Lisa.
I mean, how many layers are there? Because you've got Raven Rock was the first. Then you go into what was it, Camp David or whatever the extended facility was. That's the second. And then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, here it is, this little tiny room in Camp David. It's like, do you guys remember the movie Snowpiercer? Anybody seen that film?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where they gradually work their way through the levels until
yes.
Yeah. So it reminded me of that a little bit. It was like got a little video gamey, but
yeah, that was kind of a.
Oh, go ahead, Nat. Sorry.
Well, so going back with the Dunhill cigarettes and this whole idea of this secret government, I couldn't quite make it connect, because if this government is legitimate and strong enough to have these international connections, and presumably not with a secret, English group as well, but they're the real government, then it wouldn't be a secret. Any communications that were coming from other countries or elsewhere would be talking about their points of contact. They wouldn't be recognizing. It's not like the secret cohort of people could convince the rest of the world to keep them a secret. So if they have any interactions with other people, and he basically said that with the Dunhill cigarettes. It wasn't that it was he made a point that they were fresh and that they had their own channels. And so that kind of, I couldn't connect that with this government having legitimate channels with other governments, but still being a secret. It's either they stayed under there, and he even said at a separate point that they basically went underground and could stay quiet, but they didn't stay quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I wondered that as well, because you had the Raven Rock people who were trading openly with the locals, and they were known. Do you think they had people? I don't know. Do you think they had runners that could get out, that they would let out to, that would play the game? I don't know.
Maybe.
Because Hunter says Europe got hit too. Did they get hit? England was
Not
pretty
all of
much
it. UK was fine.
It was more of the Europe close to Russia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Since I know my geography so well, but somewhere in there anyway. But
that area over there.
yeah,
Yeah, it's more Eastern Europe than
Yeah.
the UK.
So they go underground. They go further underground. John and Lawrence decide to take an electric golf cart that goes 70 mile an hour or whatever. No, it wasn't 60. Whatever it was. It was fast.
All right, so it was an electric Hummer.
Right. That kind
I'm
of.
Wait, what?
So it's either a heavy Humvee,
Yeah,
and it's like that electric is just pushing it to the max,
Yeah.
or it's really just like I don't see how you could have an electric Humvee, have an engine that's strong enough, especially because Humvees typically have some sort of armor, and even without it, even a stripped down Humvee is still a very heavy vehicle.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, could have been a civilian Hummer.
Civilian Hummers ain't much lighter, dude.
Right.
So this is where, okay. So one thing about the structure of the book, it's just me. It's just my anal whatever, but it was chapters broken into parts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
know
why he did that. It would drive me crazy because
I thought it was a misprint in the book.
Yeah.
I was reading it, flipped over to chapter 2. I'm like, hold on a minute. I was just on chapter. I was like, hold on.
So that.
Go ahead, Nate.
That had me. I wonder if he did that to an homage to Ayn Rand.
Oh. I'm going to have to. That's funny. Anyway, I'm going to have to pick his brain on that next time because
I mean, when you think about it, and if you've read Fountainhead and you've read Atlas Shrugged, that's how that book is set up. It's 3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a certain amount of chapters in each part. So I wonder if that was a throwback to her or something.
Well, maybe, and this is just a complete shot in the dark. Maybe the cigarettes are, here we are just comparing. The cigarettes are like the cigarettes that, Francisco and them slipped to John Galt basically as a message. So their channels maybe were Admiral Youngblood, who's getting this information, and he's got, it wouldn't be a one-to-one analogy, but it wouldn't be a comparison. But
Youngblood would be very much like Galt, wouldn't he? In a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or he's the one on the outside who can get him out. I don't know.
I mean, there is Youngblood sitting. He's coming and going on the ocean, or at least to the water. So I mean.
Ragnar Danaskuld.
Yeah. What's that?
He's the Ragnar Danaskuld. He's got this
Danaskuld. That's the one I was looking for. Sorry. Yes, exactly. So I don't know. Maybe we're reading.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead. You'll have to ask him those 2 things.
I will.
And see if it's from Atlas Shrugged, because that makes sense now, because I remember you guys talking about Atlas Shrugged and Ayn Rand.
He'll just be like, no, nothing to do with it.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So one thing about the book was we get past the bulkhead, the blast doors. He figures out about this, and then he resigns and goes home. That was super abrupt to me, right? It's like okay,
yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like, oh wow, this huge revelation. And then it's like he wakes up and he's at home, and it's been some time. There's been nothing about it. And you're like, oh wait a second, what just happened? They just let him go, and
it was okay. We need to get into this now because the book has some issues, and I don't want to pretend like it didn't. I really, really liked it. So, parts 1 through 4 make up. I didn't exactly break down the numbers, but I'm going to say 2/3 to 3/4 of the length of the book, and then parts 5 through 10 just blast through. Mm-hmm. And it spends a ton of time. I wouldn't say half, but damn close to half the book building that underground world, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But then the last bit is just balls to the wall, almost like it was an outline that was fleshed out. Now, I don't want to be that guy, but it almost feels a bit like there might have been a deadline coming. That's just. Can anybody else see that, or am I being
end it and
Am I being unfair here, guys? Does anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, so this was actually the shortest book,
Mm-hmm.
time-wise. Because I know everything else was 10, 11 hours.
And this one
First
was
one was like
9.
18.
Yeah.
So, and this was 9 it was 9 exactly.
Right. Yeah. I was blown away by how short it was, actually.
Yeah.
It took, when I wrote, I didn't listen to it, I read it. And I read it in 2 nights.
Right. It's a good book. Don't get me wrong.
I had probably 3/4 of it done the first night that I finally got the book. It was a journey getting there.
Since I'm not a writer at all or an author, I'm still going to do this. So here was my suggestion on the entire situation. I think this book could have easily been 2 books. I think there was tons of content in there, and it almost felt like the confluence of 2 stories. So here's what I would have done. And I'm such a dick because, I mean, it's not like I have any influence on it or anything, but I really would have had almost the entire next book to deal with the pandemic. And this is maybe what I'm thinking. Pandemic, letter from Bob Scales, John goes to meet Bob, steps through the blast door, book ends on a cliffhanger. You could have easily had 10 chapters there.
Oh,
The
yeah.
second book could have been all of the clandestine. It could have very much been similar to the second book, where it was mostly John, his inner dialogue talking about, it could have very much been kind of this political thriller. So anybody else want to bounce that off and see if I'm crazy?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that makes sense. Because it really was like 2 plots thrown into one. And it's like, okay, how do I tie these together?
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt? Oh, go ahead, Byron.
He almost left it. I know he doesn't do them, but the novellas that he could throw in.
Yeah.
Pandemic book, a digging out of the rubble book, and maybe like a 10 or 20 year later John book to tie everything all together at the end.
What do you think, Nat?
Yeah, the second half of the book almost makes the first half irrelevant. And not exactly. Like the pandemic is kind of the thing that ties everything together. But once this blast door's opened, it's like none of the Raven Rock anything mattered.
Right.
And that was so much of the previous book, and then the first part of that book, and then suddenly it's just you've got this a completely different, you have to be introduced to a new world, a new everything. When he was introduced into the office or the waiting room, wherever it was with the bookshelves, and he's, we mentioned that before, and people know that, so it's like how much of that was staged for his benefit, like to get him to think that Lawrence was a certain type of person. Because I know when I go into someone's house and I see a bookshelf, I look at their bookshelf. I expect people to look at my bookshelf too.
I do the same thing. I used to say that exact phrase that right. But so does everybody.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like everybody does. So I thought it was strange that they put him into the room where the bookshelf was, and then they worked off that. Like, is that all part of the deeper deep state? We got the deep state. But then with the real deep state, now we get the deeper deep state after that. We didn't even touch.
This is something that 4chan would have a field day with. Let's just put it that way. So is that, that's them, right? Yeah. So Lone Canadian says, but in Bill's interview, he basically said he didn't want to write another one, a rush at the end to tie up the loose ends so that it's over. I mean, I can see that. Go ahead, Nat.
Yeah, I think it's tied in the end in a similar way that the third book was tied up in the end. Yeah. And it ends with violence and with somebody claiming some sort of legitimacy in the end there. And basically, as long as you can get other powers to recognize, and somebody asked, why hasn't everybody pounced on, it was David Siegler. Oh, yeah. Do they address why other countries haven't jumped on America while it was down? And China has. China took over the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
basically Mississippi over.
Right.
Yeah. So if you can just get the rest of the world to recognize your legitimacy, you're gonna basically be the ruler of the country.
That would have been even better if China, when he opened the door to the subterranean levels, and it was China controlling Lawrence and the CIA.
Did anybody else want aliens, or was it just me?
Oh, it would have been cool.
Yeah, it would have been fun even if it was a misdirect for a minute. But I was like, no, I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be aliens, but I legit was on the edge of my seat reading those 2 chapters.
Yeah.
I really,
Right.
it was some of his best writing, I thought, building that portion up. But yeah, so it was, let's talk about, because then, like you said, hard right turn. He goes through, he's like, all right, I'm going to go home now. Doesn't tell anybody. He takes a flight home, and it's implied that Bob Scales shoots himself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Even though 3 paragraphs before he says a good Catholic would never do that. And I'm guessing he probably did that for John's benefit, but I don't know. Anybody, did you guys get that when he said that? Or?
Yeah, he probably said that for John, and I think he knew he knew that he would do it peacefully, or go out peacefully instead of, and he would make John be the bad guy or potential bad guy or good guy.
Because Scales was off his pain meds at that point too, so he probably wanted to be clear of mind to make a decision for. You know, but,
maybe he wasn't Catholic anyway.
Well, that's true.
later, John's like, wait a second. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it was Jewish. What?
Oh man, I thought I knew I went to his son's bar mitzvah. Yeah, no. Okay, so did I ask you? Anybody here read The Stand before or watch the miniseries from the 90s?
I've read it.
I couldn't get into the miniseries that much, but
okay, I'm a huge fan. I don't know why, but I'm a sucker for that early 90s, mid 90s apocalyptic cheese. I don't know what it is, but I love it. So anyway, this entire section of the soldier defecting and bringing the disease to Black Mountain felt, I mean, it was an homage to The Stand for sure. It was, so for those who haven't seen it, I love it because it's the old Don't Fear the Reaper song is playing, which was great for like a 1994 CBS miniseries. But that's exactly what happened. The dude gets sick, Randall Flagg bumpity bump. So the dude gets sick, and he's like, he runs home to his wife, and they bust across country before the gate shuts for the military base. So it's very, very similar to how the disease gets brought into Black Mountain. And I like that. I thought it was pretty cool. It was enough of an homage to, so for anybody out there, Lone Canadian says trash can man. And I'm going to say MOON spells disaster. If anybody knows the guy in there, he spells everything moon. So anyway, Nat, again, let's get you to put on your disaster readiness hat. There he goes. He's good. Yeah. We had to take the tinfoil hat off, put the disaster preparedness hat on since we're done with aliens.
It's the same one.
It's
the same hat. I just get paid to do it on one side and get criticized for doing it for myself.
That's how it goes, isn't it? So do you know, or does anybody know when Michaela was talking about the bubonic plague, or what was the other term? Do you remember?
Bubonic and pneumonic.
Pneumonic plague? Pneumonic.
Yeah. The pneumonic is the method of transmission, and then bubonic is the symptoms. So it's like the bubos, like the, whatever, the lumps, right? Yeah. So pneumonic basically means it's spread by air. It's an airborne plague, airborne bubonic plague.
Kind of like pneumonia or whatever, I guess. Maybe is that where that works?
So it's of the lungs. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. See, I knew that I'd have somebody who could describe that.
Yeah. So if it transmits airborne and affects the lungs, then it's going to be spread way easier, and you're going to get it way easier. It's not as much of like a contact. It doesn't have to be spread through biting insects. It's basically like, imagine airborne Ebola and how much worse that would be.
Well, it's like the movie Outbreak.
Outbreak. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny how everything and go ahead, Nat.
That's one thing in this book is like I don't believe that the disease would have been contained. It's like if it made its way to Black Mountain, it would made its way elsewhere, places in between and beyond.
Okay.
Yeah, you just skipped over.
That's what I wanted to ask about. So, John reaches out, whatever. They get I assume, I'm kind of guess that he gave them antibiotics, but I'm thinking maybe the, what do you call it? The treatment or the vaccine was mixed in with it, maybe. I don't know. But so does that basically mean that the entire North American continent would have been ravaged by this disease since nobody else had pills or injections to stop it?
Yeah, they basically said they stopped it by stopping it in Black Mountain.
One town in Virginia.
So I missed that in the book. So they actually said they contained it beyond where they were?
It was in their little secret meeting.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Was it?
And they said it had a 90% fatality rate. So
Do you think that was bullshit that they were just saying that for John's benefit, or was that just plot armor or whatever?
I don't know.
Nat?
I don't think so. I just think I think that's just I don't know, not well thought out for the book. I think it's a great idea, but I think it would have spread and he would have known about it.
I mean, you've got it coming. I mean, yeah, you've got it coming from the West Coast as well as the East Coast. Black Mountain itself was surrounded by it. So you've got Black Mountain coming from all directions, spreading out. And then you've got the West Coast coming this. I don't know. Yeah, I would say that it would definitely. Yeah, I think you're right there, Nat. We'll go with that. So. And Lone Canadian says, no cure for bubonic. It can be treated by huge doses of 2 types of penicillin, but no cure.
Yeah, so in this one, basically, they said for the treatment, they had some antibiotics, and then they also had developed a vaccine because they developed which I thought was a nice little wink at. It's like, let's create a disease and a vaccine at the same time. Yeah, but this.
Okay, so they even threw a bigger wink than that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Did you guys catch it?
When they talked about the event?
Yeah, the event at Wuhan. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. What she saying?
China released?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep.
It was the bubonics payback for that.
Yeah.
I appreciated it. I enjoyed the nods to COVID because you know that a significant portion of this book was either written or at least formulated in his brain during COVID, right? So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
There was. Let me see if I wrote it down because you know me how I love to grab the worst reviews on Goodreads, right? There was one person who I don't know if I grabbed it or not. No, I didn't. So there was somebody who basically said that it was just a Trump-loving book that right-wing idiots would take to because of insert whatever. You know what I mean? Like talking about some sort of conspiracy behind COVID or whatever, right? And I was like, I didn't think he made that big of a deal out of it. I mean,
it's like two sentences.
He makes he does. I almost bet this is when I heard the sentence where it says caused us to mistrust the cure, something along those lines. I may be a little off.
Yeah.
I thought in my head somebody's editor made him water that down. That's just my guess, but I was thinking that like, he wrote that way harder, and they're like, no. There are people from both political bents that read your book. You really need to just carve the edges off that a little bit, you know? And
take it down from 10 paragraphs to 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. I liked it. I was happy that he did it. And I mean, looking back on it, it's funny that event was never mentioned in the previous 3 books, of course, but you know.
It kind of makes me just literarily, it makes the book seem more evergreen, or the series. It's like we know that the first book came out at a certain time, and we expect that that's about when it occurred. But in this one, it's like, well, maybe it didn't occur until later, and they're 5 years after that point. Yeah. You know, so it's like it could have happened. It could have happened at any point to have had the EMP at any point. It was kind of a cool way of thinking about it, because we always look at like, like movies are set in the present day, and maybe that's what this one was. This was set. Book one is the present day, and 5 years after is 5 years after, whatever the present day is.
Yeah, I can go with that. Absolutely. It reminds me a bit of The Last of Us, how they did that, where the thrust of the narrative takes place 20 years in the future, but but when they go to the past, it's basically close to our modern time. I like that. It's fun. So, all right, let's part 9 through 11 is like 20 minutes. So the fun part of the book is like, it's actually 30 minutes, but anyway. And of course, the quote that opens is 1984, which was also kind of cool. And he's like, the future is a boot on your face forever. And I love that line. I mean, that's George Orwell, and that's maybe close to what we're living with right now, or similar. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure it was intentional that he picked it. But let's go to Byron first. So, okay, he walks into the third bunker, and he comes in, and CIA lady, shadowy figures over in the corner, very X-File-ish, which I thought was kind of cool. And they're all fighting over what they should do. What'd you think of that, Byron? Where did you think it was going? I mean, it was pretty obvious that they released the virus. I mean, I don't think that was supposed to be a surprise, was it?
No, because he teased it with on the ride there with the Fort Detrick and the guys in their hazmat suits and everything. So, but in the room, you thought, well, who wants to do the nuking, or who wants to do more, release more virus, or because you already said something earlier in the book about China had warned them not to do anything against them. Are they thinking, well, maybe let's send the pandemic on to China in our own country where they're in west of the Mississippi.
Right.
Go ahead, Nate.
Before all that, how many of you guys listened to the audiobook?
I did. Everybody but Byron.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a lone reader.
So when they're up at Camp David before that meeting, and Lawrence is like, they're kind of like doing the Winston Churchill thing where they're slamming down drinks. You notice how the narrator of the story was getting drunker and drunker as he went along.
I was really impressed with that.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Did you caught it too, Nat? Obviously.
Yeah, he started slurring and everything.
Yeah.
Good.
So, okay, let's talk about that a bit. Was that Bill writing it to show that Lawrence either had a conscience or I don't know, what was the reasoning for that, or do you think that was just a choice by Bronson Pinchot?
I went back and forth in my mind, because if you look at the bookshelf as an intentional act by Lawrence or his puppet masters, then this would also have been an intentional act. It's all to manipulate John. It's all to manipulate John into believing that Lawrence is a certain type of person and base his actions on that. Or it's all happenstance, and they just happened to put him in where he could see books about him. They just happened to, get inebriated and show a little bit more of his true feelings of the situation. And I
think I'm going to have to go with the former, the first, because I think Bill probably put more thought in. I think he did put more thought into it than that. You know what I mean? So maybe you're right then. Because I took it as everything else was intentional, but this was a slipping of the mask. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe you're right. Maybe the entire thing was just kind of a matrixy thing, where everything was done for John's manipulation, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to listen to, because you felt like you were there as he was reading the story. So
yeah, I enjoyed it a lot.
I thought it was like a really good part of the book.
I'm just going to completely interrupt what we're talking about for a second, because we have a new person on here who sometimes our shows don't always jive with everything that I do on the channel, but it's good to see you. I'm going to guess Neve wants to know if we have any recommendations for power stations. If you go on my channel, I've got 2 different 500 and 600 watt power stations. I think one's a Power Smart, and the other one is running my computer right now as a UPS. But you can follow up with me, and those are two that I really like and I've had good reviews on. I'm working on a bigger solar one right now, but feel free to follow up or grab the Telegram link, and yeah, we're good from there. So good to have you, man, by the way.
Anchor's coming out with one in a couple of weeks too, I think.
There is an Anchor one right now at Costco that I've seen that is really nice looking. It's a little on the steep side, but I've never been disappointed with an Anchor product yet. So, okay, back to the story. So we have an entire, I don't know, another, well, a third Reich or a third whatever in the bottom. And there was the lady from the CIA who basically was bomb them all. You got Youngblood over in the corner who's like, whoa, 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 slow down. And then everybody else at different kind of intervals in between that. Okay, I get all that. Somebody needs to fill me in on, I must have missed this, I don't know, how John left the way he did.
With Youngblood?
With Youngblood. What happened there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's basically like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take him under my wing, but I can't imagine they would let him out of their sight.
Was there anything?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I thought I kept missing it too because I went back to that part and I'm like, where is this in the book? Because it's like all of a sudden the meeting's over, we're adjourned, and Youngblood grabs him and they go on the ship.
Yeah, they had said something to Lawrence, and
sure. It was like, basically a 5-second conversation about cigarettes, right?
Yeah, and then and then like, hey, I'm taking him, whatever, for some reason to understand some part of his position, or I don't know, whatever it was.
Okay, they were going to Charleston, right? Does anybody know why they were going to Charleston? Okay, I guess. Go ahead, Byron.
My only thought was maybe Youngblood wanted to communicate with the subs more securely.
Okay, let me back up here just for a minute. You have John, who previously, the second he got out of Lawrence's sight, disappears, runs back to his place, right? You have John, whose town has probably got the medicine that he needs at this point.
Yeah.
And
you've just let him in on all of your deepest, darkest secrets. They told him about all of the plague. They told him about basically making him a figurehead for them and using him, essentially. I mean, he got that idea. And then she's like, okay, well, have fun. See you when we see you.
So if anybody else is in the audience here that read it, I don't know. It was Charleston, right? I'm sure that's where they were heading to.
Yeah. Unless it was part of Lawrence to make sure he could contain John on the ship, and that he's not going to go anywhere else. And they were going to do something, and he was going to be the puppet down in Charleston and take the blame for it. Because Youngblood did say that before the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was pretty obvious almost from the get-go. That they wanted John to stay on as a fall guy. I mean, that's a pretty common plot device all around. But
it's just interesting that they tried so hard to make it him. Like, they could have really picked anybody. They're probably mid-level bureaucrats all over the place.
I don't understand. Yeah. Oh, Hunter says, wasn't Charleston the new capital? Maybe that's what it was.
I don't know.
And my other thing was, it was pretty abundantly clear in that meeting that there was no love lost between everyone else and Youngblood. And Youngblood didn't seem like he was super trusted by the rest of them either.
Right. Well, and it goes back to the question on are these all separate entities kind of fighting against each other, or are they joined, like they're all on the same team? And I don't think, it didn't seem like they're all on the same team until they're like, okay, go ahead. You're our least trusted person, to take our Patsy, our fall guy, and get him out of here.
Go for a flight so you can decide to nuke all of us.
Yeah. Spoiler.
Okay. I gotta. Yeah. Well, we're way past spoiler time. I figured I better just break the Yeah, I mean,
I was just waiting until we got to that one.
yeah, we're there. So, all right, the ending for those who haven't. I mean, it's we're so far past spoiler territory, but I mean, we're talking how many nukes? 5, 8? How many did they?
I don't remember.
5.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know. I gotta pick Dave Jones, the NBC guy's brain on this. I guess the idea was they didn't destroy the bunker, but they collapsed the roof in on it. You know what I mean? Or
yeah, and he said at the end that it was just several hundred feet deep. So it's potentially they destroyed it. The blast itself could have been enough of a shockwave to have killed people that deep.
Mhm.
We don't know, and I don't think the book will address it. But it will have destroyed any access to the top level. They'll have to dig themselves out and go through fallout when they get there.
that's true too. So
it had to be a surface burst in order to have an impact on the bunkers. They couldn't do an air burst, which is tactically, if you're hitting something on the surface, tactically it makes sense because you're going to have minimal fallout. You do an air burst, and it's not going to create as much fallout. When you do a surface burst, that's when you get the mushroom cloud, everything. You get the crater, and that was the impact that they had,
and
headed up.
I appreciated that they addressed that in the book as well, because they were very much. He's like, all these people downwind are dead. They just don't know it yet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it's still pissing me off. The young blood, John getting out of there. I don't know. I got to go back and re-listen to it because I cannot figure out. I'm listening to the book and I'm into it, and I'm like, they're on a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's like there's like 2 or 3 paragraphs completely missing, like right there. Where
they trick the rest of the people to let him go off with Youngblood.
It felt like they're like, hey, look over there, and they're gone. I mean, you literally have underground guards who are blocking places that nobody should ever get to, yet they just let him walk out. And I think I missed. I don't know, but if I missed it, Nat missed it, Byron missed it, and Nate missed it because
there was nothing there. Unless Youngblood was more important. If he ever let on, that was be the only.
Here's what I thought he was going to do. I thought John was going to bring the nukes in on top of himself and be a sacrifice, write the character off so there was no chance of another sequel. And the moral thing, it was was the train problem mentioned in this, or did I hear that somewhere else? The trolley car problem, was that mentioned in this book?
That was in here, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was, and because that's the whole idea, it was
the ethical dilemma.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, that was my biggest problem with the entire book was how did John, and that's when I tell you that the ending was a bit like a Stephen King ending. That's what I meant, because it's like everything, well, maybe not everything, but it was a really good buildup. And then they're all of a sudden like, all right, here's 15 minutes of exposition. And this is what we're going to do. John's on a plane, submarine surfaces, nukes, boom, 7 minutes with Michaela to talk about the morality of it. And we're done.
Yeah.
Like, oh, come on. There was so much more I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a good way to end it, but it was quick.
Yeah, what I did like about it was that it's not so different from what the shadow government was doing, the secret group. Like they had the plague, they spread it out for the greater good because, basically they're trying to eliminate some aspect of the population, create some damage, but they want to reinstitute order and structure and come in and save the day. And really, that's the decision John had to make in the end, too, is he sees these people doing terrible things, and he says, do I have to do a terrible thing, too, in order to do my perceived greater good? Like, everyone's fighting for the greater good. And he ended up killing who knows how many people. And not just, with the fallout, how many people are going to be impacted by that. So innocent civilians are being killed. So he's not better than, like, as a result, he's not better than the bad guys, but he had to do it in order to, fight for what he saw was the right way to go.
Let me put something out there that as you were talking, I think I made the connection. So if you go back to book 3, John, they had to do some really bad things to, there was probably people who ended up dying eventually. They did what they thought was right. Here's the difference, I think, and maybe this is where Bill was coming from. In book 3, the people that wanted all this shit to happen were secret. They were hiding. They were underground. They wanted to pin the problem on somebody else. The end of the book, John was known worldwide as the dude who threatened whatever. You know what I mean? He was open about his part in the rebellion, whatever. In this book, once again, you have secret people behind the scenes doing what they think is right, but not wanting to take responsibility for their actions. Whereas once again, in the end, the BBC broadcast says John had a part in this nuclear thing. So I think, I might be wrong, but here's what I want to say. I think Bill's idea of a protagonist is doing the hard thing, but doing it in the open and taking responsibility for what happens. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely killed a lot of people, but I still think that he's the good guy.
Sure, I do too. And maybe part of that is the fact that we get to see inside of his brain the entire books. But
yeah.
I mean, again, go right back to the beginning. And I don't remember who mentioned it, but I think it was in book 1. And they always said that the reason, when they wanted to make John the head of the military back in book number 1. And I believe it was the head of the school, the dean. He said, John, do you know why you're going to be the leader? Because you don't want it. And I think when it comes down to it, that's probably some of, the hesitant leader and the person who's willing to take responsibility for their actions. Oppenheimer, however you pronounce it. I seen an interview with him recently, and it was a few years post, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And I mean, he never denied any of what happened. He talked about it and he was open about it, and he talked about the consequences of it, but he also talked about why it was done, why they made those choices. And I don't know, that maybe that's what makes a person moral as opposed to, a sniveling little antagonist in a book. So I don't know, getting way too deep tonight, but that's okay. That's what I like about these episodes. Wait till we get into Ayn Rand, eh? Hey, Nate. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's gonna be. We might need to just bring the bottle down here for the night.
I'm having fun. Are you going to try to join us, Nat? We're not ending yet, but you going to join us for Ayn Rand or not?
I hope so.
I would love to have you. It would be great.
Yeah, I've read it a handful of times. Wait, no, 2 handfuls of times.
I've read it one fingerful of times, so I'm looking forward to doing a second go. So,
I think there's a lot in there. I think it's terrible literature, but I think it's a must-read book.
Absolutely, yeah. Honestly, I think it's a philosophy. It's a philosophy textbook coached in the style of fiction, is what it is, and it is what it is. I don't think she would ever win, narrative awards or anything, but it's an incredible. Would she have been considered postmodern? I don't think she would she?
I don't know,
because her stuff very much reminds me of a lot of the just what's his face there, Andy Warhol. If Andy Warhol wrote a book, it kind of has that feel to it. It'd just be random, and anyway, it doesn't matter. But there's a lot of the other guys. James Joyce. Maybe do you guys remember the Ulysses? He has entire sections where anyway, it's just very random that way. But okay, so let's get into some thoughts here, since we made it. I can't believe we made it through in less than an hour and a half. So are you guys good for a little bit yet, or
a few minutes?
Nat's like, I got babies, so you can leave anytime you need to. So,
All right.
here, let me read each one and we'll see what we got. I really enjoyed the mystery of the first 3 chapters. I like that. The hell of an ending, even if it was very Stephen King-ish. Any of them we haven't talked about. So, in this book, I kind of felt like it was more plot driven than character driven. At least, would anybody else because in the past it was very much John and his inner monologue consistently throughout the entire book.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first 2 to 3 chapters, I thought the main character was going to be this secret society underground bunker thing. Did anybody else notice that? Yeah, Byron, what'd you think?
Yeah, it seemed like it. Well, when you first reading it, it's like, well, all right, they're going to center nothing. Everything's going to be centered around Lawrence and his crew and whatever else. And it's either John trying to escape or, that's when I first started reading it. So.
I just want to read. I missed this. I brought it up but didn't say it. Mitch is like, it's like 299 days, leaves his family to die because of a voice, and then goes to his bug out. Who would do that? Doesn't make sense to me with a family. I'm fair. Yeah, I get that for sure. It was the same with, like you said, because of a letter from a friend. Yeah. Just stay. You don't have to go anymore. You've done enough. So.
I mean, with the way. I thought the plot was much better on this. Like there was more storytelling than in somebody's mind. And I like those kind of books where there's more, like what's going on around versus what's going on here.
The first book was about a third. Like there were entire chapters that were a meeting that was an excuse to hear inside of John's head, and I'm okay with that. Book 2 was very similar to that. And book 3 kind of took that historical. There was still some inner dialogue, but the second time around I read book 3, I really, really enjoyed it, like a lot. It, I guess just the whole Civil War thing, even still. But, all right. What do we got? Yeah, I put happy with the mentions of the Twilight Zone. Okay. It had a 4.2 star rating on Goodreads. I like that page. And there's already been 341 people review the book. I thought that's pretty good for something that a lot of people would still call prepper porn, Be interesting to see the sales on it. It'll be cool. I know I can't think of the name of the company, but they were sending out books to a lot of people this time to drum up kind of interest. So it was kind of cool. Advanced reader copies. That's what I was looking for. So I read, there was 341 reviews. A ton of people in these reviews have not read book 2 or 3. They read book 1 and then they read book 4 based on getting a free copy of it or the audio of it. And I thought, man, you're missing out on a whole lot if you don't get 2 and 3.
Yeah. You don't know where he's coming from.
Especially
or what he's been through.
Yeah. I think
why he smokes so many cigarettes.
Yeah. So true.
I thought he quit that in the first book.
He did, and then he's back again, and it's the same as
spoke like a freight train there at the end. One after the other.
Well, it's what do they say that people write what they know, right? So that's what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't Michaela end up smoking too in this one?
Yeah,
she did. That's right.
Yeah, because she was going to throw them away. And then it said she grabbed one.
Yep.
He didn't even bother hiding them again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the portions about Michaela in this, but it's funny how as the books go on, a lot of those peripheral characters just kind of fade out. I mean, the daughter was like, there was, I think, a single sentence mention of the daughter. Oh, she lives in a town over now, and
and his the army guy, the one-legged or the one-armed
Forrest.
His head was just a little blurb about him, and that was it. I mean,
we did get the NASA hacker scientist guys. I like them. I would love an entire book around those two, bringing in all of these delinquent geeks that they talked about how people would just randomly walk in with carts full of computers that weren't plugged in. I'm like, man, that would make a great book in and of itself. That would.
And they're like manipulating world events behind the scenes. With that would be cool.
I still thought that Franklin was the Two-Face, or he was the inside guy. But
anybody X-Files watchers back in the day?
Used to.
Okay, do you remember the lone gunman?
Yeah.
They were no. Okay, so every so often Mulder would go visit his conspiracy theory guy. So I mean, if Mulder wasn't, he was conspiracy through and through. But these three dudes were like, they would sit in a room on computers and they knew all of the behind the scenes shit. Anyway, they got their own spin-off TV show for 13 episodes that failed miserably. These guys remind me of them. They're like the conspiracy computer guys behind everything.
I don't know if the audiobook had it, but that Linda was actually based on a real character, on a real lady.
Really?
And yes, it was in.
Was it in the preface?
What do you call it?
It mentioned she had helped, like with the moon landing or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, maybe I missed that. That's cool. Is it the lady? There was a book or a movie recently. What was that anyway? Was the black lady that helped with the moon landing? Was it her? Or was it somebody completely different?
There was a black lady.
Yeah.
The Hidden
You
Figures.
know, the mathematics.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Hidden Figures. Yes, thank you. Yes, Mitch says one of the lone gunmen was in love with Scully. Weren't we all in love with Scully in the 90s? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but oh boy. Becky's not here tonight. Go ahead, Nat.
Yeah. With this series, I think a lot of series, fall victim to this, but it's basically the Fast and Furious model of things. Like you get the Fast and Furious original movie, you got a couple of ragtag, like car thieves, right?
Yeah.
Or they're
stealing VCRs.
They're still in VCRs, right? But by the ninth movie or whatever, they're skydiving and
going to space,
taking on submarines, and going to space. Whatever, it's just like each one builds up, and James Bond kind of had the same issue, but his his world revolved around the gadgets, and that's what ramped up. But this one kind of expanded like that too. Like you lose, so here he is in this small town, and like Bill said that he wrote it basically a modern rewrite of Alas Babylon, which is one of my favorites. He did it in the prepper porn fashion, and so it's just like, but kind of like Jericho. And I didn't get the backstory on his issues with that, so I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. But then it expands a little bit, and you've got these communities outside of there. You have these groups fighting against each other, and then you have a more national scene, and then you get into this big old conspiracy worldwide, and it's like this retired professor from Black Mountain is the guy who can solve all of these problems, and no one else could. Yeah,
I think no, you're so okay. Here's what I put. I had 1 second after caught lightning in a bottle, and that's what it was. I mean, it was a super well done book, and I mean this is not new to this book. I mean, it's not new. Anybody who creates content for a living, whether you go back to the late 70s with the first Friday the 13th movie, that was just this really cool self-contained movie. Jason wasn't even in it. It was the mom that was doing the killing. You know what I mean? Yeah. To eventually Jason waking up 1,000 years later in cryostasis on a ship in space. I mean, everything I just said is 100% true. That's what happens, right? And because each thing has to be bigger and better. And maybe that's what's cool about a lot of these prepper porn books that go 10-book series. They don't, I mean, take the Going Home series, for instance. I mean, I guess they're kind of, I don't want to say they're self-contained, because he does get involved with some big shit, but maybe not as big as John Matherson does. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I like well, okay, let me read you this here. 2 out of 5 stars. Shortly after I started reading it, felt very similar, like I had read this book before, which prompted me to log into Goodreads. Sure enough, I had read book 1, My review was that I thought the book accurately portrayed how society would shut down, but the rest of the book was just jarhead misogynistic that I couldn't stand. In the portion I read, it didn't seem as bad, but this definitely felt like a book written by a white male desperate to show off masculinity. I think that was written by ChatGPT. I could be wrong, but
Right?
it pushed all the buttons. But
Yeah.
what I will say is,
Was her name Karen?
yeah, remove the social justice warrior aspect to that, and you've got a bit of what we're talking about. Because I mean, anybody who writes a book, maybe not anybody, but a lot of the people that I've interviewed and we've talked to, the characters are based a bit upon themselves, right? And it's a fun little escapist thing that just gets bigger and bigger as time goes on, you know? Because of course you're going to be, I mean, if I wrote a story, I would be the center of, you know, whatever it is. And people laugh and they're like, oh, the main character has plot armor. Well, you could say that, but at the same time, if you, I don't know, pick somebody in the world who has survived a whole bunch of weird scenarios happening to them, right? They're still alive. So did that person have plot armor their entire life? No, you're just telling the story after the fact of somebody who's led a really interesting life. I don't know.
Have you read the Locker 9 series?
I have not.
So the first one I thought was pretty good. And you could tell, so it's about basically mostly about this girl who'd gone to college, and Locker 9 was a storage locker her dad had set up for her. And her dad's an author, and I get the impression that the dad is based on the author. Is a character based on the author. Basically the same way that Bill.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So Bill seems to put himself into John.
Sure.
In his books, and that's how that seems. And basically, you get through the books, and you deal with this idea of, is this person who I think I would be in that situation? And the guy ends up like his going up and down on how capable he is and whatever else, just through the book series. But I think that's kind of Bill going through this is like, okay, if I were in that situation, how would I hope to do this, or what would I do? And you know, some of it's the doomsday fantasy. You know, it's I think that's where people get the reviews, and that's part of the things that make me roll my eyes for this series. But also part of it is he's got to come up with this like a moral, idealistic hero type of thing where he's in a situation he doesn't want to be in, but how's he going to deal with it? And escalates, and you know, just like any of our daydreams or fantasies escalate into a crazier situation, but he ends up saving the world. So maybe
that's fair. So. Cabot says, have we ever done the Joe Nobody series? We have not. Mm-mm. Has anybody read the Joe Nobody series? Because I don't know it.
Nope.
Hunter says, that's a question. Which character in these books were you? Are we talking like that we would ask Bill? Because if we were, I'm pretty sure he's the main character, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think we've covered as much as we needed to cover. All right. So we have no idea if there's ever going to be another book. My money is on probably not at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, because he ended on a happy note.
But here's what I want everybody to do, because this will be fun. If you had to write a sequel, whatever you want to call it, where would it go, or what would it deal with? Oh boy, who wants to take that first?
China goes whole hog on the U.S.
Go ahead, Nate.
China goes crazy on the U.S.
And what, like Red Dawn? There's a war.
Yeah, that would be the route I would go.
Fair enough. Okay. Nat, do you have your fingers up?
Yeah, let's take who was the mess sergeant undercover guy?
Oh yeah.
Let's say he gets out of there. So it could be before, during, and after. That would be what I do is his role, basically how he's the real force behind things, or keeping things in check. But then he escapes and goes on and does some James Bond stuff or the Unit type stuff or something like that.
Ooh, I like that. So a spin-off as opposed to okay, all right. Byron, do you want to take a swing?
Yeah, you could do. I think there's 4 or 5 different ways you could go. You could do the happy ending book and go 20 years down the road, his grandkids, and that now Raven Rock's a memorial to all the lost people. Or you could do Lawrence had an escape hatch. And then he brings the remaining whatever people he can scrounge up along the way to Black Mountain to try to get revenge on John.
We've got the underground Camp David and then the underground Camp David. You think we just went horizontally? No, we went vertically.
We went vertically and then horizontal.
So Byron wants the Avatar plot.
Which is, what's that? Just retelling the story again?
Sideways.
Okay.
I still think it's the perfect. The ending is the perfect for some novellas. Is just you could go different ways with it.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the Walking Dead route with this. So I'm going to go to New York City, kind of like a la The Stand or something, with somebody completely unrelated, or maybe related to the story, but maybe somebody we don't really know, or maybe just a passing mention of a character in the book. And I'm going to have them dealing with the day. We're going to go back to 1 second after the day of the day, and you're going to have that person surviving in New York City and then coming back to Black Mountain. Go ahead, Nate. Actually, hold on. My bad. It's going to be New Jersey because that's where he's from. So it's going to be a brother or an uncle or something. So go ahead, Nate.
Yeah.
The wife and the daughter of the military guy who just found out in this book they were still alive back at Black Mountain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lewis or whatever his name was.
If you're following somebody, New Jersey, New York, or somewhere, make it in the fallout zone so that they survive, and then they end up getting hit by the fallout that John created with the nukes.
That would be so mean.
We're home free. Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be fun. My guess is that he'll probably never touch this series again, and he'll probably write some of his, because he's actually written a lot of other books. Mm-hmm. And we don't care. Yeah, just kidding. I did read. Which one is the CME book? Has anybody read that?
Yeah, the 48 Hours.
Yeah, that's like
that was it. That was a good one.
It was a very good book. Yeah. Self-contained. There's no room for a sequel. It was like the Roland Emmerich book. He does like what the guy that does 2012 and ends the world. Except this was the end of the end.
Yeah.
Anybody ever see the old Canadian movie Last Night or The Last Night? It's got Sandra Oh in it. I just rewatched it the other night laying in bed, and it's so good. But that's the whole idea. Some unnamed, I'm guessing the sun's going supernova, and the world just ends at midnight. That's the story, and it's everybody just dealing with it until then. And if you're still listening, we probably just spoiled the plot of 48 Hours, but yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, they tell you right at the beginning. When the person's doing the demonstration in the stadium, basically, essentially tells you what could happen.
Oh, yeah, the Bill Nye guy, right?
Yeah, and you get the idea there, and it's just basically how they're dealing with the buildup.
But they leave Cabot says no room for a sequel means everyone lives. Yes, that's exactly what I meant. You're right.
Sunshine and roses.
You know what? So if there's no more books, I would love to see just 1 second after turned into a 13-part or a 10-part prestige HBO series like The Last of Us or something like that, or maybe a different channel. But I don't know if HBO would.
I want to see a Tom Hanks produce like he did Band of Brothers.
Oh yeah, I'd take that.
See what kind of take he could go. What he would do with it.
I'd like to see Frank Darabont. He did. He's done 3 or 4 Stephen King movies, including The Mist. I would love to see him turn this into like a a 10-part series. So go ahead, Nat.
Yeah, and you could. I mean, 1 second after is very much John Matheson, but if we took all the different characters and made them more interrelated, I think it would. For the things that made, like I said, some things made me roll my eyes, but I think if it was not so much focused on him, but we focused on the experiences of a lot of people and how the community comes together, and of course he's got his part to play, but I think that would be a cool, series.
So in the first interview I did with him, and we'll wrap it up here, but I asked him what he thought of the show Jericho, and I didn't know that it was a soft spot. So apparently the way the story goes, it sounds like he had a teleplay or a screenplay written for 1 second after, and it was supposed to start production around the time that Jericho came out on CBS. So so he has a very sore spot.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does. But I would love to see like a TVM version of it, or even like a TV PG version.
It could be a good like Amazon, like they did with
book. Actually, Amazon would probably be the best because Amazon or maybe Apple TV. Apple TV's done they just did Silo. Have you seen Silo, Nat, at all?
No, I'm familiar with the premise of it, though.
Okay. I watched the first few episodes. Becky kind of lost interest, but I enjoyed it. Anyway, Apple seems to be giving their creators a lot of freedom. So
I'm waiting to see the new Tom Hanks, the Airman of World War II, whatever. I don't even know what the name of it is. It's coming to Apple TV sometime later this year. I got a free 3 months. I'm just waiting for it to go so I can watch it.
All right, guys. Well, this was fun. This was good. Why don't we? I bet Nat has to drop off. Nat, do you want to plug yourself? Where do people find you?
The Preparedness Guy, everywhere. Instagram, I'm most active. Preparedness Works is my podcast, so you can check that out. And I'm on YouTube and wherever else. So
I will share that. I don't know how I didn't know. How long have you been doing Preparedness Works?
I don't know.
He's going to say like 12 years. About as long as you've been calling me Nate instead of Nat. That
kind of No, it's relatively new. Not a ton of episodes. It's just trying to take the emergency management view, the lens, and talk about preparedness. Most of the episodes right now are solo episodes instead of interviews. I just had Rick Austin on there for Prepper Camp, and nice. I won't be making Prepper Camp this year. Yeah, just things going on. Yeah, so, everyone who does go to Prepper Camp, tag me on Instagram when you're there. Get pictures, tag me. I'll share that in my story so everyone can see what they're missing out on, what I'm missing out on too.
And did I mention to you, or I think I did, about coming on for a roundtable episode about emergency management people? Okay, yeah, I think you, maybe Jeff, the emergency guy, and then I was thinking maybe George would want to come on for. George Siegel, the documentary guy. I think it'd be a fun kind of interaction between the three of you. So get into some fights or something.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Thanks,
Nat.
gentlemen.
Have a good night, brother.
See you.
See you later.
Byron, how do they find you?
My personal prepping page, I guess you'd say, everyday page is Byron_Roberts06. Then I've got a Jeep page, Foolish Habit _LJ. Then the link on that, my bio link on my Jeep page has a Midland affiliate code in there and some other discount stuff. So
nice. And you're doing some prepper challenges right now that you're gonna.
Yeah, I haven't posted anything to Insta lately on it. I'm just kind of waiting until I get everything together. That way I can just roll some out and maybe try to get a YouTube channel going. I'm just not really good on the camera side of it. So
you do good on here, man. Yeah, no. That's good.
Yeah, I did a couple videos on there. I've did a couple reviews. I'm going to do an updated review of my mini pack from SOE that I use as a range bag. So
perfect. And how about the bearded chick of Two Chicks Homestead?
Well, you can find Aaron and I at twochickshomestead.com. We are back to our weekly podcast now. So we do a little bit of homesteading, a little bit of comfrey salves. We do sell the salve. We sell comfrey roots. We got a few other projects in the works right now. I'm not going to talk too much about, but I will want to say you will want to be paying attention to us around September 16th when Tim is down here. So
Yeah, I wish I could make that.
What's that, Byron?
So I wish I could make that, but at my granddaughter's birthday party is that Saturday. I'm like,
It's all right.
I
We'll
can't
meet
make
up.
it SRF. I thought, well, maybe I can get somebody to help with the wife while I'm gone for just an overnight trip.
So, did we decide? Is next month when we start, or did we decide we're starting November with Ayn Rand? Did we say for sure?
when are you coming back?
So I may not be back till late October, and I
Okay,
was
then we'll go November.
okay. Let's do November because I really want to put a lot of work into this series.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can do it on the road, but it's a hell of a lot easier doing it from here in the office. So
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll plan for the first or second Thursday in November. And we mentioned that we're going to do a special patch, didn't we, Nate? At this point, if we haven't, I just did. So
Yeah, we're gonna do something. So
okay, it'll be the Atlas Shrug Challenge or something. So that'll be fun.
Yep.
I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, guys. So anybody else out there, Saturday night, tune in for the 10,000 subscriber special. Even though
Tim has good prizes.
yeah, I do Blockbuster, and I'm gonna
I got a slinky.
I should have got my fanny pack and my slinky out.
That's right. And if Lone Canadian's still in here, this knife is up for grabs. We got a pound of hollow roast coffee. We've got a kit, a first aid kit from Homestead Medical. Is that or yeah, I think that's what it is from Chuck Peoples anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like him.
Yeah, and then a bunch of other giveaways, including a really good one. So that that somebody asked about earlier if I might have something left to give away, and I may just have something shiny to give away. So you know how it is. So. Lone Canadian says daughter's getting married. Won't be there. I don't think that's much of an excuse. No, I'm just kidding. Don't ever worry about life being life. You do life. We'll be here. You can always watch it afterwards. So cool. All right, guys. I appreciate you. As always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.